Hello and welcome to the next podcast. This week, we're going to cover basically quickly setting up but data collection with the EMPATH system. A couple of things though. One is it's finally come out. I use the EMPATH and I use other systems as well as part of measurement and verification, and Steve Cromer's book finally came out. It's the first book put out for AEE Press, or the Association of Energy Engineers. So the very first book, basically called Judgment and Decision Making in the Application of M&V, the role of measurement and the role of the measurement and verification professional, and that's really important. It was a big part of the entire certification process, was the whole thing about judgment and decision making for doing measurement and verification for energy purposes, energy and emissions. So there we go. In any case, one other thing. We'll cover this after the this particular part, but this last week I had a chance to do more with the Acoustic Imaging camera, and in particular, one of the things that was troubling me, as you may remember when I talked about doing the one machine, was I was seeing corona, but I wasn't sure if it was really corona or not. And I've also been reading a lot on some of the acoustic imaging companies that are out there that you should ignore corona, which we know is incorrect because corona produces ozone. The ozone's what attacks the insulation system. So I went ahead and while we were at one of the sites, we were at fracking and drilling sites this last week, troubleshooting machines, doing root cause failure analysis on machines, and that will be a future podcast. But in any case, I went ahead and one of the machines that we were testing, we were seeing it had a fan basically. So aimed over at that machine, and sure enough, it showed high percentage of corona, and we know that there was no corona present. So that takes care of that part. I'll talk about that briefly at the end. We'll pull up the video so you can see what I'm talking about. And of course, that's a concern and a limitation on the technology. So it requires, basically what it means is it requires a judgment. So with that, I have a motor running in the other room. We're connected up through an EMPATH system. Don't know if I can get it over here, but here it is. And you can see I have basically an E-plug set up with it. So that's, when we collect data here, it's going to be off of a 3/4 horsepower motor running in the other room. Hopefully you can't hear it in the background. So let's go ahead and in the last podcast, I talked about the features of the latest version of the software. So let's go ahead and we will do what we were doing. We're going to set up a machine real quick, and we're going to call it test motor. You know what? You don't need to, but let's do this. We're going to call it test motor with an underscore. A lot of software programs now, if you're not paying attention, might require the underscore. And I always do that just to be sure that I don't generate any type of problem. You notice a comment space here. So let's go ahead and we are going to set up the smiley face. Okay. It is an induction machine. It's running unloaded on a VFD. I could select VFD. I never do. The reason why is because it'll drop out certain capabilities. 3 phases, required voltage, 3 phases. I could switch it so that it's current only. Now, we just did this where we were, and I'll go into that in a minute. So power 0.75. It is a 1790 roughly, so we'll just leave that there. It is rated 460. The software puts down 480, but it's really 460. 2.75, we're probably going to see higher current because of the harmonics. And I always like to make this down as low as I can. Torque, I believe this one was 28 rotor bars and 36 stator slots. Could be 24, but I'm going to say 36. Because it's off of the off of an E-plug, I don't need to do anything here, so I'm going to leave that. It is a totally enclosed fan-cooled. It is just a straight energy efficient. I don't need to do this because that we're going to cover next week. So I'm all set. Bearing information, I believe, if I remember right, well, always select. We're going to go ahead and we're just going to, just for safety purposes, meaning we'll call this an SKF. I'm going to call it a 6304 in the drive end and a 6203 in the opposite drive end. Not sure if that's it. I'll have to look again. I've done it before. I'm just doing it on the fly right now. Here's what's cool is after I collect the data and I'm analyzing, I can say, you know what? I don't agree. Let's go ahead and select the correct one. Okay, it looks like I'm hanging up just a bit. Let me pause. There we go. Sometimes when I have a lot of things running, and I have a lot of things running, it'll do that. Okay, so we're going to say for the drive end, what did I say, 6304. It's usually a 6300 series in a small motor like this on the drive end. And then on the back end, we'll say 6203. Now, I could go down there and pick a ZZ and whatever else, be perfectly blunt. Those will all have the same multipliers. So we'll select that. Now there's my multipliers for my bearings. We'll select OK. Now that we have this set up, we also want to make sure that we have the correct ratios in here. Okay, and I think we'll just leave it at 10. These may be the 5.57s, but we'll leave it at 10 for our purposes here. But that's the that'll be the millivolt per amp rating for the HCT, and I'll do 1, 3, and 5. Okay, so that's my current. I drag these down so I'll have overlapping. 2, 4, and 6 are voltage. So those should all be the same, all the multipliers up here the same, but we're going to show you how to do some stuff around that in any case. So if the current is really outrageous, we'll be able to correct it, and I'll show you how. So we're set up here now. Now comes collecting the data. So double click. There's my current and everything. Yep, that looks about right. So we'll just leave it the way it is. So there's my current on top. There's my voltage on the bottom. Now this machine is deliberately set up incorrectly. So the drive is. So the parameters aren't exactly right. You can see that it's really dirty. It's connected directly to the motor. It is set for about 50 hertz. Now, what are some of the things I can do? If I do have a problem, say the voltage is off or something like that, I can come up here and make corrections, right? Here's all the stuff before, and we'll just come in here and say motor on test bench. And then we do have to correct something because I did make an error on the nameplate. So you'll notice that this adjusted based upon the rating of the motor. Well, the motor is actually connected for 230 volts. So I do not have 460 here at this facility. So we'll take that, and now that's going to adjust everything. And you can see everything's off the screen a little bit, so I'm going to click F8. Now F8 is going to come in, and it's the same as this little motor thing here on the end. It's going to adjust the gains, it's going to set everything correctly, should set the phase alignment up. It's still telling me the voltage is off. Yeah, look at that, 800 and some volts. That's not correct. But 1.8 amps, that is correct. Power factor, that looks to be about right. So the question is, what do I do about my voltage? Well, it's how I set it up. So basically, the next step would be to see that it says that. So, I'll have to correct it afterwards. But 839 volts. That's my RMS, by the way. So that is not correct off of that E-plug. Probably haven't set it up right. Let's make sure our setup options are correct. Yep, we got that. And down here it says the correct serial number. So that's right. Okay, so I'll have to check the voltage divider later. Looks like it's letting a little too much through. So, but the waveform's correct. So let's go ahead and we're going to take a set of data with this first. This can slow down or speed up the scan rate here. I like seeing the waveform when I'm analyzing. These do different zooms. This changes the sample rate. We're not going to mess with that. Never mess with that. You want that higher sample rate. Change the resolution of the A to D card. We're going to leave it there. And then this gives me a really cool ability, so I can, if I want, watch the FFT real time. But the other thing I'm going to need to do is come here, select this. You can see it's popping up, and have it do the log spectrum. Do relative. It's normally what I analyze with. It's popping up my torque. See that? And now, as soon as the computer catches up, you'll be able to watch any variations in the background live. Now, based on what it's doing right now, I'm probably starting to lag. I am so sorry. I tried to correct that. But it's telling me the foot-pounds. Obviously, the voltage is wrong. But we'll go from there. So let's go back to where we were. This is a trigger ability, so I can have it trigger on startup. This, of course, changes the length of time it's going to collect data, which right now, total length is going to be 48 seconds. But if I'm doing a startup, like say I'm doing an inrush study on a piece of equipment, I do this all the time with certain DC motors in the steel mills, right? I'll have 11 passes. It takes 3 minutes for all of those passes, so I'll put in enough seconds there to cover the 3 minutes. This, if I'd selected trigger and I click download, it'll say waiting, 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 and then when it's time to collect, it'll collect. This, of course, stops the data collection in the middle if I want, but I don't want. Let's go ahead and collect the data. So now it's going to collect data for about 48 seconds. In the meantime, I can watch what's going on with my voltage and current. And I'm going to have to figure out what's going on with voltage here. That's probably something I didn't set right. Or it has something to do with the older style E-plug. And you know, I'll get that off to the programmers. That's going to be a question that goes out today with some other things that we've observed in the field that I want to make sure that we cover in the future. So that's part of what we do, is when we get feedback, we get things like that, we build up a library, and then on the next, each release, we cover whatever makes sense. So any improvements, anything like that. So there we go. As soon as it's done, that was 48 seconds. It's like watching paint dry. Here's the data. It's going to do a couple of things here real quick. Or it's supposed to. I'll do it manually. And right now it's analyzing the data. There we go. Yes, I know about the rotor bar thing. Okay. Now this is something we're working on where it's going to estimate the number of broken bars based upon the data. It says also misalignment or unbalance, so let's take a look. This is the waveform here. Here we go. So you can see the pole pass frequencies on either side. You can see I'm at a running speed here based upon the actual speed, based upon the line frequency. If I'm unclear, I can right click this, say I want to line it up with the pole pass frequencies. Let's see what it does. Okay, but it took it away from the running speed here, and that's probably because it's so near line frequency. So I don't agree with it, so I can do this. So on the analysis part, after I've collected data, I can mess with it. It's going to select the best peak first, which it had. So it's lined up now, and this is a pole pass frequency. This is all correct. Bearings, it's not seeing anything in particular. Now, if I want to see anything in particular, let's go back here. From any of the analysis here, I double click and it'll pop up those things. But of course it already has it because of the running speed. You can see that I'm able to zoom in relatively easy. And all of those extra peaks all mean something, by the way. So there we go. Showing, the multiple peaks here, a lot of sidebands around it. That's a combination of noise, and that did have corona. It did have electrical discharge because I saw both corona and PD with the camera on this machine. And then I can also look at harmonics in both current and voltage. Better be high harmonics and voltage, because they pretty much almost have a square wave. Extras, I can take a look at any losses associated with any defects, and that'll calculate my total losses. I can look at the time waveform frequency. This is basically, that's not time waveform. This is time waveform. This would be everything else. Because everything's so low, it's not doing the greatest. But there we go. And then let's go ahead and take a quick look at the high frequency data set. I'm going to show you a couple other tricks. Here's my waveforms. Come over here, it's basically set up for 2 kilohertz. See, my voltage is really kind of nasty looking. But let's go ahead and zoom in. Okay, there's the stuff. There's that. It's voltage. And let's go ahead and we'll get rid of the time waveforms. Now, as I've talked about before in the book, Practical Electrical Signature Analysis of Electric Machinery and Systems, I published that a few years ago. All the calculations are more or less built in. So first thing I do is I want power harmonics, because otherwise I get false positives. Let's take a look at dynamic eccentricity. What I'm looking for is peaks that are existent here that are not existent down here. I know it's a little bit of an eye chart because of all the noise, from a badly set up VFD. But how do I know it's badly set up? Well, I did an IEEE paper on this. You see that this is no longer called a winding short. This is now winding stress. That comes from that study. And as you can see, is I have peaks under every one of those. So like, for instance, here and so on. So that tells me immediately that I have a winding stress situation going on. Some of those peaks there not showing up in voltage. So that means that that is most definitely a winding stress. And I'll see that on VFDs in particular. So the old winding short type signature that everybody kept throwing out because the original study was somebody twisting wires together, and that must be the cause, is just the short. Didn't think that it involved any type of sparking, arcing, or partial discharge going on in windings. So when we have advanced partial discharge in windings, we see it as this signature in electrical signature analysis. So with that, that's data collection. That's that real quick, and then of course we have casting voids, but let's do one last thing. I see what's going on. It's a failing drive. Okay, so the voltage isn't exactly off. It's just trying to show at 60 hertz here. This is the correct frequency here. It's a problem. Interesting. Well, we'll figure that out later. Still running. So in any case, when I come in here and set things up, okay, that's not surprising. I can then go ahead and click on this, and it's going to do my report for me. Okay, and for the record, the background has to do with my setup for programming. So this is not the color for the. It'll be normal in Word. So this is the Word document, the report that ends up coming out as a direct result. So a lot of details. Anything you looked at will also come out. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's more or less it. I could make it more complicated if we really wanted to. I am going to, while we have a little more time here, you notice that I put a note in there, and now it shows up here. If I open this up, and I come in now, say I'm in the field and I see something odd, I can, in here, come in and comment and say, including attaching any pictures, but I can say, odd voltage readings, check drive. Okay, so there we go there. And I did figure out, by the way, that it has to do with something else. So everything's working right. It's just the weird voltage. So we'll take a look at that in just a second. Okay. So that's why it did what it did. Okay. So this is the pole pass frequency here. When I'm in here and I'm doing the check, I had it default primarily to pole pass frequency instead of the running speed, and there's a very definitive running speed peak. You can also see these peaks here. That has to do with all the noise. So let's go ahead and we're going to switch this back to running speed. That'll fix the results. Okay. And then once we've noticed the problem with the voltage, first off, let's go ahead and open up the voltage signature as well. So we're going to look at both voltage and current. I want to see where it looks like here, and then I'm going to correct it. Okay, so it's telling me voltage is pretty darn high, of course. It's up significantly high. So let's go ahead and we will then also change our PT ratio to 0.2. That looks closer. That looks about right. Yeah, so it did certain things. This is specific to this application, the way I have my little lab set up. So let's go ahead and we'll take a look and see what happens when we collect data with this set at 0.2. Now this should correct it. Please don't tell me you corrected the correction. It corrected the correction. Okay. Okay, so let me make sure. Oh. Okay, I corrected it on the one thing. I did not correct it on the nameplate data. There we go. So yeah, I'm dealing with something a little unusual here, but what's more important is normally this type of thing doesn't happen where I'm having to make adjustments like this on the fly. However, on the other hand, the point is that I can make these adjustments on the fly, and I'm not relying on something that I can't see. I'm actually seeing the data that I'm analyzing. So now let's go ahead and we'll run it. One more set of 48 seconds. Then we'll also see, because the motor's been running for a while now, if anything else shows up. Also did discover, by the way, with the Hike Micro, the acoustic imaging system, have to make sure it's shut off. There's two settings for shutting off. One is a sleep mode that I wasn't aware of because it's not in the manual. And when you put it in sleep mode, it continues collecting. It continues what it was doing. So let's see what how we show now. You notice a very low currents here, but they show up much higher here. So let's see what this says this time. Notice the current has also settled in. Okay, we're still there. It is showing a potential bearing issue now, which not surprising. I do have shaft currents going on the outer race and the opposite end drive end machine. Okay, so what is one of the other little secrets with the EMPATH system? Well, let's see. If I come here and I want to see what's going on, I just double click it and you see all this. So there's the ball spin. So it probably, yeah, that's a concern. I see it's just off a little bit. And then the outer race and inner race. And so here is my outer race. On this end, small peak, and over here, a relatively small peak. So those are it. So yeah, that's not surprising. Shaft current issue and everything else. So we are all set. Now I can save that, do up the report, send it. I can have that stored wherever I want to store it. Back it up, and anybody who has a copy of the software can open it and analyze it. Now for next week, we're going to go ahead and we're going to test this machine using, I haven't decided if I'm going to go ahead and use an ECMS E1 or the data collector. I can use the ECMS E1 data collector or the ECMS 32, which takes in 32 machines and keeps your cost per machine under $2,000. I can select, I'll select one of those, and then we'll hook up, and then we'll set it up for continuous monitoring. And then I'm going to take a couple of sets of data. I'll set it up to take data every 5 minutes. So we get a couple of sets of data. I can show you what all that looks like, including how the motor dock layover software looks. In the meantime, let's go ahead. We'll shut this down. I'm going to try to set that down. Okay, there we go. And we are going to swap machines. To the Hike Micro. Sorry. Someday I'll set the camera up over here again and some other stuff instead directly on the laptop, but these are more, well, I guess you could call it a tutorial type podcast, right? So let's go ahead and we are going to do the acoustic analyzer software real quick. Okay, so I'm going into device. Let's take a look. So let's grab one of these. Here we go. So here we are, and this is a fan. So I know it's only a fan. There's a Corona saying 98%. All of the information along with it. And here's the big part here. Just a massive noise floor, which is all fan noise. So the systems are set up so that fan noise is Corona. So that's why, you know, to date, I'll just say that's most likely why, you know, they're saying that the signature, because they're looking for consistent measurement, well, so is the fan noise. So at this point, I'm going to be testing. I'm going to ask some people to test with their systems, other systems than just this one, and do a comparison and see if we're seeing real Corona or fan noise. Because I would hate to think that somebody's going to go up to an operating machine like this. Because I looked at the side of the machine, I'm like, oh my God, look at all the Corona. When in reality it wasn't, it was just fan and air movement. So that's what I suspected then, and that's what we found in the field. Let's see. Let's go ahead and we'll import another set of data from this last week. So that is, well, there's the fan noise from the other machine. You can see the high noise floor as well. Where it also indicated Corona. So unless I'm defining something, for instance, I might, if I'm out and I'm looking at an overhead power line or something along those lines, where I know I don't have certain types of noise, I might select that. Now, if I go up and I'm doing let's say a transformer, and it's got a lot of fans on it, then I might consider it as an issue. So here's a fracking site. And just for fun, I took sound from a 13.8 transformer. So this is this is the drive. There's the transformer. So 13.8 to 690, and then the drives, and then all the motors and pumps are in back. So that noise right there, that's not showing us anything. That's just a transformer noise. That was about it. Let me do one more thing so you can hear that. We're going to go ahead and pop up the video. Just realized I do not have, hopefully the microphone picks it up, I don't have the computer audio set up. Like micro SDs. Okay. So you can hear that background sound, and you can see the dancing on the right, which is the same thing I'd get with corona discharge. So it's showing up in that way. That's showing up as noise, and then all of a sudden I'm back to corona. Yeah, and of course, diesel engine exhaust, probably not corona. So there are some limitations to that technology. Let's see if I've got one of the other site. And here's the sound. I believe we should be able to hear the sound of that trailer. Yep, where are you? Nope, that is not the trailer. That is the... Okay, let's go trailer. Maybe. Not the one I'm selecting. Let me pause this and get it up. Okay, so last but not least, let's take a look and listen to what it was seeing. And you'll also see it's bouncing around the detection point because of the types of things are set up. Now, some of it's down because the pipes aren't popping, but yeah, so that's basically what we had been looking at, transformer, and then drives, and then motors and pumps in the back while we were taking a look at these. That and that's it. We're going to cover more on trips like the one I was just on. I've got more coming, and all RCFA related. And we are going to cover RCFA related to that as the second half of next week, because, be perfectly blunt, it's not going to take that long to do the continuous monitoring portion. We'll set up a machine from scratch. We'll just set up continuous monitoring, and then we'll show how that works. With that, have a great day, and we'll see you next week.